Hey, it's Arlo Leach with another version of Setlist Maker. We're at version 3.2 now, and I just want to walk you through some of the new features and make sure that you can take advantage of them. Now, version 3.2 is mainly focused on MIDI updates, so for those of you using MIDI, you should especially check this out. In previous versions, you always entered your MIDI program changes and raw MIDI into the song records, and now the MIDI data is separate from the songs. And if you look in the main menu of the app, there's now a list of MIDI presets. And if you previously had MIDI data entered for your songs, when you first launch version 3.2, the app will create a MIDI preset for every song that had MIDI entered for it. And if you open the preset, you'll see the same data that you had entered for the song. So I had a song called Beat a Lum Bum, and it just had this one program change. And when I launched Setlist Maker 3.2, it created a preset called Beat a Lum Bum and copied that data into it. And then if I open the song record now, instead of seeing all the MIDI fields here, I just see a list of presets, including the Beat a Lum Bum. So basically the functionality is going to be the same as it was in previous versions, it's just organized a little differently. But this new organization lets us do a few things. First of all, it lets us define some MIDI code that we want to use on multiple songs, and you can just now define it in one place in the MIDI preset list and then attach it to as many songs as you want. Or, on the flip side, you can define multiple MIDI presets and assign them all to the same song. So now you can switch between different MIDI patches within the song. So for example, let's say that in the Beat a Lum Bum song I want to use 3 different sounds on my guitar processor, and I want to trigger them from Setlist Maker. So I'm going to enter 3 new MIDI presets. I'm going to do a mellow sound, and that is just say program change 1 on my processor. And then I'm going to add a bright sound, and we'll just say that that's program change 2. And then we're going to use an overdrive sound for the solo. So I'm just entering a name for each preset, and then my program change data to patch 3 here. And by the way, the raw MIDI field is also here, so if you want to do raw MIDI, you can do that as well in conjunction with the program changes, just as before. So I'll save that. And now I have my 3 new MIDI presets for my 3 patches on my guitar processor. Now I can open the song record for Beat a Lum Bum, and I can open this presets list, and this works just like the documents and recordings list. I can select any number of my presets, select these 3 new ones, and then I can put them in order by dragging and dropping. So I have my mellow, my bright patch, and my overdrive patch. I'll save that, and now I see them listed here, and save again. Now another thing you'll notice in the new version is that for the first time we have a little MIDI icon in the song lists for any song that has MIDI attached to it. And whereas previously you could only send MIDI from the Perform window, now you can send MIDI from anywhere in the app. So this makes it easier to set up and test your MIDI or use it in a rehearsal. And so if I tap this button right now, it would send the MIDI for the first preset attached. If I want to send any of the other presets, I can tap and hold the button, and then I see a list of the 3 attached presets. And so again, this works just like the multiple documents or recordings that I can attach to a song. And this icon also appears in the Perform window and works again just the same way. I can tap and hold to bring up a list of the presets. Now when I'm performing, I might not have time to tap and hold and go through this process of selecting an additional preset. So I have a couple options. One is that I can go back to my settings and go to Setlist Display and scroll down to Screen Display. This window is reorganized a little bit, and there's some new options here. And there's some options for multiple recording, document, or MIDI buttons. I'm going to turn on multiple MIDI buttons. And now I'll go back to the Perform window and look at this Beat a Lum Bum. And you see that there's no MIDI icon anymore. However, if I select the song, I now see a separate button for each of the MIDI presets that I defined. So now I can quickly hit a preset just by hitting one of these three buttons. There's room for up to 5 buttons here, so you can get direct access to up to 5 MIDI presets. And as you might guess, those other two options for documents and recordings work the same way. So if you want to attach multiple documents to a song and quickly switch between them in the Perform window, you can use that feature as well, same with recordings. Now this makes it pretty easy to select these items if you can tap the screen, but if you need a completely hands-free option, there's a new option for that as well. If you go to the remote control window in the settings, this used to be called hardware input, now it's called remote control. And if you look at the different input options, we now have options not only to select a document and play a recording and trigger a MIDI preset, but we have options to specifically select any of the first 5 items that are attached. So I can trigger a specific MIDI preset here, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same with recordings and documents. So what this means is that I could assign a foot switch to preset 1, and then assign another foot switch to preset 2, and another to preset 3, and then those 3 presets that I attach to my song I could trigger with my foot switches. Same thing if I have multiple documents and multiple recordings. And again, there's room for the top 5, so I can attach more items to a song if I need to, but I can just access the first 5 through these methods. Now we have this new MIDI icon in the song lists, and in some cases you're going to have a lot of song buttons in these lists if you're using a lot of the different features of Setlist Maker. And it's okay in this view on the iPad, but in some of the narrow lists, like in the left sidebar of the iPad, or on any screen of an iPhone, which is essentially this sidebar, you'll see that the song buttons just take up too much room and don't leave enough room for the song titles. So we now have a new option to take care of that. If you go to Settings and Setlist Display and scroll down, and we now have a section called Song Buttons in Narrow Lists. And they're all on by default because that's how the app worked before this version. But we can now turn off particular song buttons that are less important to us. I'm going to turn off notes. Actually, I'll turn off everything but documents and recordings and save. And now if I go back to the song list, I can see much more of my titles, and all I have for the song buttons are documents and recordings. Now all the buttons still appear in the big list over here, and on an iPhone they would appear if you rotated your device to landscape so that your list was wider. But when you're in this narrow list configuration, this allows you to hide the buttons that are less important to you. Okay, for the next feature I need 2 devices, so I'm going to scoot the iPad over here and bring an iPhone into the situation. Got a nice little iPhone 5 here, and I have the same How Long Jug Band database on both devices. So I'm going to go into the shows list on the iPhone and bring up the same show. Okay, and the new feature I want to show you now is a remote control feature, and this is kind of a hybrid between the screen sharing functionality that was added in a recent version and the hardware input functionality that's been there for a while. And it's similar to the screen sharing because it works over a local Bluetooth connection. And it's similar to the hardware input because it lets you use one device to control another device, just like you'd use a foot switch or a MIDI pedal to control Setlist Maker. You can now use Setlist Maker on one device to control Setlist Maker on another device. It's a little confusing, but let me walk you through it. I would like to use the iPhone to send song selections to the iPad. So on the iPad I'm going to go to Settings and Device Linking. This used to be called Screen Sharing, and now it still has the screen sharing option, and it also has the new Device Linking option. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the iPhone. Settings and Device Linking. And the iPhone is going to be broadcasting the settings, so I'm going to turn on this broadcast remote control events and save that. And now on the iPad, I'm going to choose to follow the remote control events, and this will search for the iPhone. And then I'll select the iPhone. And now I'll see a confirmation on the iPhone in a moment that it's okay to connect. Okay, so I'll accept the connection request. And now my two devices are linked together. Now I have to do one more thing on the iPad. I'm going to go to Remote Control. Remember, this used to be called Hardware Input. Now it's a little more general, so it's called Remote Control. And the first section is Setlist Maker Link Messages. I'm going to choose both song selection and page position. And these are the two kinds of actions that I can share between my devices. So let me save that. And just like all the remote control functionality, this only works in the Perform window. So let me open the Perform window for this show. And I'm going to go ahead and open the document for the first song. And now on the iPhone, I'll go to the same show again. And now I'll also open the Perform window on the iPhone. And now if I tap to select the second song will automatically be selected on the iPad. So now whatever song I select on the iPhone will transmit over to the iPad. Now I see that the white document here is kind of washing out the screen, so let me just close the document. And so I've just got the song selected here, and I'll just demonstrate this again so you can see it better. So for each song I select on the iPhone, the same song becomes selected on the iPad. So this is a little different from screen sharing, because in screen sharing everybody has to see the same thing. In this new remote control function, each device in your band can be showing a different thing. You could have a different layout. For example, one device could show the document in split view, the other device could show the document in full screen, and some devices could not show any documents at all. Or each device could have their own versions of the documents installed. But if you select a song on any device, it selects the same song on all the other devices, and it really just applies that song selection action to whatever data and whatever setup is installed on each device. Now I don't have any documents installed on the iPhone right now. If I did, I could not only select songs, but select pages within the song. And in fact, if I scroll the document or zoom it or reposition it on one device, I can transmit those actions to the other devices as well. And this works with either documents or just the built-in lyrics field. So basically you can have everybody viewing their own data, but have just one person responsible for changing songs and changing pages, and then everybody else in the band doesn't have to do that. Now one other difference between the screen sharing and the remote control is that the screen sharing is strictly a master and slave relationship. There's one device that's broadcasting its screen, and the other devices can only view that screen and can't do anything else. In the remote control, you can actually set up any number of devices to broadcast and any number of devices to receive. So if you did that setup, anybody in the band could select a song, and that song selection would broadcast to all the other devices. And all you do is just repeat that setup in reverse and choose the broadcast option on all the devices that you want to have the capability to send the messages. Oh, and by the way, if you have song selection actions configured on any of the devices, they'll still work. So, for example, if I configured my iPad to play the recording whenever I select a song, and then I select the song on the iPhone, the song on the iPad will be selected and the recording will start. So there's a very large number of possibilities that you can experiment with here in combining all this different functionality with the remote control and the song selection actions and the different document attachment layouts. So have fun with that. Now when you're done with remote control, you can disconnect the device that's being controlled by going back to device linking. And you'll see that the button that we tapped to follow remote control events now says stop following remote control events. We'll just tap that, and now we're disconnected. I think we're done with this iPhone, so let's take this away and bring our iPad back over to the middle. Okay, and I'll show you a couple more features. This next one is my personal favorite. I've been waiting for this one for a long time, and that's because I'm still old school and I still like to print my set lists out. But a lot of times I have to do a lot of trial and error in tweaking the font size and the other settings to get my set list to print out just the way I want it to. Well, now that's a lot easier because I now have a built-in print preview. Now, we used to have underneath every show buttons to copy, email, and print. Those are all now replaced with a single button called Share. And when I tap that, I see a new window, and now I see my copy, email, and print buttons available, just like before. But I also have a live print preview here, and I have a copy of all the settings that affect the output of my set list. And this will affect the set list when it's either emailed or printed, or in some cases copied to the clipboard. So what happens is that I can quickly just tweak my settings here. Let's say I want to try and get the font a little bigger. I'll bump that up to 60%. And that looks good. And if I want that to be my new default, I can tap the Save button, or if this is just a one-off, I can leave it as is. And when I close this window, I'll revert back to my previous defaults. I can change the fields that are included. Let's add the color labels, and let's add the style. And once I added the style, I saw that everything spilled down to a second page. So now I can go and tweak my font size again. Try to get it back to one page. There we go. Alright, so 50%. And now that I've got it looking just the way I want it, I can either email it, or print it, or copy it to the clipboard. A lot of these options don't affect the copying, but this is exactly what your email will look like if you're using PDF format email, and this is what your printout will look like. So hopefully this will save some time and some paper too. Just a couple more quick things. We have some new tempo options, and I'll go to Settings and then Tempo and Pitch. And I can now choose to emphasize the downbeats when I'm playing a tempo click or just watching the flash. I have a click sound chosen here. Let me choose a new one. The tone is going to be a little easier to hear on the recording. And so I've got emphasized downbeats turned on, and now when I play this tempo, my downbeat is louder, and it's a brighter color. It's yellow, and the other beats are orange. And I also have some new auto stop options. I used to be able to auto stop based on a number of minutes and seconds. Now I can auto stop based on a number of bars, or I can just play until the end of the song based on the song duration, and then auto stop at the end of the song. The number of bars, by the way, is calculated based on the time signature that I've entered for a song. Or if I haven't entered a time signature, it just assumes 4 beats per bar, and that's how it calculates the number of beats that it's going to play for before it auto stops. And just a warning, the auto stop functions only work in the perform window. I figure that when you're in the main window and you're rehearsing, if you're playing a tempo, you might just want to play it indefinitely to repeat sections of a song or whatever. But if you are performing, that's when you want the auto stop functions to work. So if you see that it's not working in the main window, that's normal. And one more thing, we have a new auto scrolling option. You could previously auto scroll documents or lyrics in the perform window, and now you can also just auto scroll your entire set list. To turn this on, you can go to Settings and then Automation. And at the bottom of the window is a new option called Auto Scroll Set List. You can turn that on, and then if you go to the perform window, your set list will start scrolling automatically. You won't see it right away because Setlist Maker gives you a chance to play through your first few songs, but once you get down to about the middle song, you'll see the set list start to scroll up. And the scrolling speed is based on the duration that you've entered for each song. It won't work if you haven't entered a duration for any of the songs, so if you see that it's not working, double check your durations. And if you open a document or select songs with the document open, the auto-scrolling will stop, because whenever you're selecting songs with the document open, Setlist Maker automatically puts that song in the middle of the list, so the auto-scrolling is meaningless at that point. But especially if you're not using documents and you just want to view your set list and have a totally hands-off approach to Setlist Maker, the auto-scrolling of the set list should be helpful to you. Well, as always, there are a few more minor features in this version, so you can check out the release notes on the website to get the complete list. And the website is all updated for this new functionality. So if you prefer to read about it or get more details, just check out the tutorial section on the website for step-by-step instructions. In any case, thanks for watching, and I hope you like the new stuff.